Corner, please, just for a moment.
Yes. This is Paul Mason from Ipswich. He weighs in at 70 stone and he's been in the headlines with the revelation that his treatment cost the NHS £100,000 a year.
Should the taxpayer really be footing that bill? We asked a super slimmer, Charlie Waldock, to look into the price we're all paying for a country piling on the pounds.
I struggled to walk down the stairs. I found it hard to get out of the chair. I needed a taxi to get to the end of the road, but that's because I was 50 stone.
I'm now 35 stone lighter, and no one knows better than me how hard it is to lose weight. By 2050, half the nation could be obese, and those extra pounds aren't just on our waistlines either. Experts reckon it could cost the NHS a whopping £10 billion.
Last month, Paul Mason hit the headlines when his 20,000 calorie a day diet had caused the NHS to splash nearly £1 million on his care. But Britain is bursting with similar stories. In Scotland, the number of gastric bypass operations has risen by nearly 700% in the last 4 years. The London Fire Service spends £60,000 annually rescuing excessively overweight people trapped in beds, chairs and baths. And in Bristol, the local NHS has spent £600,000 on reinforced furniture and equipment. So with some local health trusts increasing their obesity budget sevenfold, what happens when a large person needs to go to hospital? They get picked up by one of these.
So this is a bariatric ambulance. How much does one of these cost?
Well, this particular vehicle would cost around about £100,000, which is on average about a third more than a standard ambulance. It looks exactly the same as a normal ambulance, but what you can't see is the reinforced flooring, the reinforced suspension, and the obvious noticeable difference is the tail lift, which is wider and obviously a lot stronger.
So what about the equipment itself?
Well, the difference in equipment is predominantly the stretcher. Now, that's a lot wider stretcher than the standard stretcher and also take up to about 70 stone. That stretcher, all encompassing, is about £16,000.
16,000.
A standard stretcher is about £8,000.
But it's not just ambulances. Hospitals across the country are shelling out cash for supersized beds, trolleys and even mortuary fridges, with some figures suggesting that the average hospital spends £60,000. But should we really be prepared for the NHS to foot the bill? Experts question why the greed of some means other health services will effectively be starved of resources.
I have very little sympathy with people who just eat and eat and eat themselves and expect the NHS to clear up after them. Particularly what concerns me is the tragedy that they're taking up hospital space, hospital operating theatres, hospital staff, when somebody who needs it more may not actually have access to that service at the time that it is required.
Given that lots of people are obese, whose responsibility is it?
There are so many messages out there now which tell people that healthy living and healthy lifestyle has to be the answer to obesity. If they don't pay any attention to it, that is, in a sense, their fault.
Campaigner Fatima rejects that idea. She celebrates her larger size and believes that the NHS should support people like her, whatever the cost.
It seems to me that only fat people are not allowed to be sick, but thin people can be poorly. But if you're fat, you're bad.
A lot of illnesses are related to being obese, so.
That is what is being sold.
Diabetes,
cancer, yes, it is scare tactics.
High blood pressure.
High blood pressure. If a doctor gets a high blood pressure thin person, what is he going to prescribe? What is he going to ask them? Lose weight, like he would say to me? So the message shouldn't be, don't be fat because you're going to drain the NHS. Is try and look after your health, fat or thin.
That's common sense. But I know that obese people do need extra help. Thankfully, here in Rotherham, where 60% of adults and 30% of children are obese, they're pioneering just that.
Well, basically, a long time ago when I started off as a GP, I realised that all of us in primary care spend all of our time treating conditions like diabetes, heart disease, high blood pressure, high cholesterol. And it made me realise that we're actually treating the consequences of obesity. And if we took that little step further back and start treating the cause, then we'd actually save the NHS a lot of money in the long run. We're not reinventing the wheel. We've got all of the services that you could possibly hope for all in one place. We have the facilities and the ability to actually see thousands of patients over the next few years, and as often as we need to.
With the national NHS bill for tackling Fat Britain over £4 billion a year, perhaps cash invested in Rotherham to combat the causes is money well spent.
Charlie's here. Charlie, do you understand the arguments when people look at Paul Mason there and say, well, why it's self-inflicted, they might argue, so why should we pay for his care?
Well, we need to care for Paul, obviously, because, you know, you can't just leave the guy to die. Obviously, there's people around him that are killing him with kindness, and people do that. You know, the guy's got nothing in his life. I had nothing in my life, and the friends that I had around me were killing me with kindness, but obviously they knew.
By feeding you mean?
Yeah, absolutely, because that's what people do. You know, a baby cries and you feed it. Paul is very upset. I used to get very upset. My mum, his parents, his family, feed him.
What was it like? What was it that clicked with you, though, that made you think, I've got to change my life here? At what stage will that happen for this man?
Well, I was in a very bad way. I had really bad ulcers on my legs, but I always used to work. I had a full-time job. I was a bingo caller. But it got very, very difficult to do that job. And I had a lot of self-respect for myself. I didn't want people to start coming in and caring for me and having to look after me and to be a burden on everyone else. And my mum, you know, bless her, she came to look after me for a few days, and I was in a right state. So yeah, I just needed to change, really. It got too much. It got to the point where I either had to diet or I was going to take my own life.
So from a doctor's point of view, Harry, a former doctor, as a former doctor's
I haven't been a doctor for 20 years.
Yeah, OK, but...
I like the look of him. It looks like... I don't know what it is about him I like. It's got
There is a certain similarity.
Yeah. It's difficult. I mean, my mum put on a lot of weight, and in the end they said what they had to do was to put a band round the fridge to stop her from... No, I'm kidding. No, it's a very... Please. Yeah. It's a very serious... It's like the smoking thing. Do you treat, smokers? I think you treat everyone, don't you?
So how did you lose your weight then?
Well, basically, I ate less and did more, and I suppose I put a band around my fridge as well. I don't buy food. You know, I lost the weight, and I just went out walking and.
Well, to put it into perspective, if you can just show us your
TV grammar demands that we see your former trousers. Would you give? Harry, would you mind holding one end of his trousers?
Yeah, that's just incredible. Honestly, Charlie. That's wonderful. I feel very proud of you. My sister lost a lot of weight, so I know that the struggles and the battle.
Your sister wasn't that big. She was big, but she definitely wasn't that big.
Well, she lost a lot of weight.
I've got a family living in these at the moment.
Thank you, Charlie. It's lovely to meet you.
Lovely to have you here. Thanks a lot.